Hello everyone, this is Shannon for Waffle Flower Crafts. In today's video, we're going to create some really beautiful floral panels using stamp die cuts from the XOXO Combo set. So here's the card that we're creating today. As you can see, that front panel has an opening cut out. We're going to use a circle die and cut that out first thing. So starting with an A2 top folding card base made from light blue cardstock that's 110 weight, we're going to open it up and grab the circle die. This circle die is from the Flower Circles die set. It's a really wonderful die that has little pierced details, and what I love about this die is that it cuts the pierced details on not only the external edge but the interior edge as well. So I'll just pop that out after I run it through my die cutting machine, and I'm going to save that inside circle to stamp my sentiment on later. So I went ahead and die cut several of the flowers and leaves from the XOXO Stamp Set or Combo set. Here you can see here several of the largest flower. I cut about 4 of each of the leaves and flowers. I kept one of my scraps that I used to die cut, and I'm going to use this to help me to position my stamp so I can stamp lots of these die cuts very quickly. This is called a jig, and right now I have this jig inside, nestled into the corner of my MISTI, and I'm just centering this flower stamp inside that negative space inside the jig. Once I've got it centered, I will pick it up with my MISTI, and now I can just pop in those die cuts that I cut out earlier, pop them into that open space, and I can now stamp them. This just allows me to stamp lots of these die cuts because I will need several of each of those images to complete or cover the whole front of an A2 card. I'm stamping this flower several times here in Waffle Flower's Tickled Pink, a really pretty pink, and now I'm going to do some partial inking to add a little bit of depth to this stamp. So while this is Abandoned Coral Distress ink, and I'm angling the ink pad just to hit the edges of this flower, and that's going to add a little bit of darkness and kind of create the look of roundness, and I just stamp it, and that's it. I'm going to ink it up, clean it real quick here, and then I'll ink it up one more time with the Tickled Pink. I like this final layer of Tickled Pink. I just think it smooths everything out. And now you can see that beautiful flower with that little bit of darkness around the edge to add a little more dimension. Now I'll pop in another die cut and repeat the process. So I repeated the process for 3 total flowers. Now this stamp or this flower has actually 2 stamps to complete it. So I'm going to use that die cut that I stamped on already, center in that center of the flower. Once I got centered, pick it up, and now I'm stamping it in 2 colors of Distress ink. First was Scattered Straw, and then I'm taking Wild Honey here and just going around the edges just like I did with the petals to add a little bit more depth and dimension. I repeated the center for all the other roses, and now moving on to a new flower. I already centered the stamp, but I want this flower to be white, so I'm actually using tumbled glass here, just partial inking the edge of the petals, and what this does is it kind of looks like a shadow on the petals. It's a perfect solution for a white flower when you don't want to stamp it in white ink. Now I'm stamping the center with Scattered Straw and then a little bit of Wild Honey around the edge, just like I did with the roses prior. Now I'm moving on to the berries. Again, I want these to be white, so I'm using that tumbled glass again, just partial inking the edge of the berries. And now I'm going to finish the berries with their stem, and I just used Wild Honey Distress ink for those stems, and I thought that was a nice contrast. I continue this process for the remaining berries. Once I'm done with the berries, I move on to another flower. I'm going to stamp these flowers with Scattered Straw twice, just so they're nice and dark, because there is a little bit more surface area for these than like all the centers of the flowers that we did earlier. And now again, I'm going to do some more partial inking, angling that ink pad just to get the very base of the flowers. Definitely these mini ink cubes make this a lot easier to do your partial inking than if you had a large ink pad, and that just adds a little bit of depth. And now I'm finishing up these flowers by stamping their stems, and I'm using shaded lilac to stamp the stems. And again, I'm stamping them a couple times just to make sure that I have good ink coverage and darken it just a bit. So I went ahead and finished everything. I even off camera finished these leaves. I used a blueprint sketch for that light blue, and the dark blue is chipped sapphire. So now I'm ready to kind of start assembling or arranging all my florals. I have a piece of press and seal here. It's definitely bigger. You want it bigger than your A2 panel, and I'm going to tape it down onto my work surface with the sticky side facing up. So the tacky side of the press and seal is facing up, so I can start arranging my die cuts. So I'm going to start arranging all these die cuts here using the actual card base as a guide, so I know where I want to avoid placing die cuts. I want to make sure I go around that opening in the front of the card, and I also want to make sure I go to as close to the edge as possible with these die cuts, so you really have a nice clean panel. So here's the finished arrangement of the die cuts. The press and seal makes it really easy because it kind of holds everything in place, but not super tight that I can't just lift up the die cuts and tuck another one underneath for better arranging. Now I have a couple flowers here that don't really sit much on the press and seal, so I'm going to ground them with some liquid glue real quick. And now I'm going to grab some tape. I have 4 large pieces of painter's tape here, and I'm placing them on all the sides of my panel here, or all on covering most of these die cuts. This tape holds all those die cuts in place, and then I'm going to flip this over, carefully remove the press and seal. You could use another piece of press and seal if you wanted to on the top to hold them in place, but I prefer the painter's tape for this part because I want a really good hold. I don't want anything to slightly shift or move around. Now I'm taking some foam tape here and just placing it on the back side of these die cuts. I am being a bit strategic on where I'm placing these and making sure I go over where maybe 2 die cuts overlap a little bit, because this foam tape is really important. It's going to hold everything in place. So here I have it completely done, all the backs removed, and now I'm going to center it on the front of my card, using the edges of the die cuts to help me center, and also that opening that we left in the die cuts to make sure I'm getting it right over that opening in the front of the panel. And now I'll carefully remove the painter's tape. The painter's tape just does a really great job of holding everything really securely in place, and you can save that painter's tape and use it again later for another project. And that's all done. Now I'm going to move on to stamping my sentiment. So this is the remainder circle that we cut in the very beginning. I'm just stamping love you a couple times in Distress ink, chipped sapphire, the same blue I used for some of the leaves. And now I'm adding some liquid glue to the back side of that die cut, holding the front of the card down, centering it through that opening and pressing it down, and that ensures that it's perfectly in the center so you can see it when you look through the card. And that's the finished card. I really enjoyed making this card. My favorite part is playing with different color combos. I have a couple other cards I'll show you here in just a second, but I love all the dimension. This has a look almost of like this is a panel, a die cut panel, a full panel, but we assembled it with all our little die cuts, which allows to have a lot more customization. Here I did, instead of a circle opening, I did a heart opening and a different color palette, and I really love how this one turned out as well. It's really fun and bright and vivid. I have one more to show you. Here's one with more kind of a traditional color palette with green leaves and more customary floral colors. And here I didn't make a window like I did on the other two. I just left an opening and then put a die cut in the center. And instead of hearts and circles, you could do squares or diamonds, or you could even leave an opening the size of maybe a critter or a person. There's just so much you can do when you create your own front panels. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If you want any more information on the products I use, please visit Waffle Flower, and you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more creative ideas. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful day.